They had jumped a garbage HOV to get to the port. Nothing more natural than kids from the outskirts rummaging the trash lanes. The plan was to get on the liner, head to the supply shuttles, and wait for the takeoff. We'd jettison the shuttles before we hit space, and cruise back planet-side with all the food and supplies. Sounds easy, right? Today on the Comic Book Report, Gone by Jock from DSTLRY. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I'm so excited to dive into this collection I received from DSTLRY, this beautiful art book here capturing all of Jock's Gone. This 3-part science fiction epic is beautifully revealed across this format, and I can't wait to dive in and talk about it. This is the first comic I've ever read from this publisher, and I would just like to say a huge thank you to all those at DSTLRY for providing me this review copy in exchange for this honest review. Okay, with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written and illustrated by Jock. The issues in this collection were published by DSTLRY beginning in 2023. As for what this collects, this volume includes Gone, issues 1 through 3. And finally, this is an oversized hardcover edition with nice glossy print paper stock, what appears to be a glued binding, and a total of 166 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look at this oversized hardcover edition from DSTLRY. I love these kind of box-shaped releases. I've seen several publishers do these in recent years. Definitely a wonderful showcasing of art when we get an edition like this. I should say as well, there was a direct market release cover for this edition, I believe. I'm going to go ahead and throw up a thumbnail just so you can see it and can compare the two covers. Transitioning now to the spine of this hardcover, I'm fascinated by this. I love the shock of kind of yellow here. The black font, we got Gone, Jock, the creator, and then the little D DSTLRY logo at the bottom. It's sleek, it's minimalistic, it's shiny. I honestly really love it. It's really cool, and it makes me curious about further releases from this publisher to see if we have any kind of uniformity there. But for this Gone book, I do think it's a really striking idea. On the back cover of this hardcover, we just have a little bit of a blurb or description about this title, some information about the creator, pricing information, publisher, things like that. All pretty straightforward. I love the art we get, kind of space looking down on a planet. I just think it's really striking and beautifully done. It should also be noted that there is no dust jacket for this hardcover. You just have the hardback book itself with this beautiful art printed on it. Okay, now I did want to go ahead and show a quick look at the binding for all you prospective collectors out there. As I mentioned earlier, I think this is a glued binding. I certainly see a fair amount of glue in the binding. I'm not sure if there is some sewn action happening as well. That's definitely possible, but I absolutely see some glue. My binding is a little bit stiff. As you can see, the pages don't lay down perfectly. However, this was not an issue whatsoever as I was making my way through. I like having some nice tight pages in there and made me feel like the binding was strong. Next up, I did want to provide a bit of a size comparison just so you can see how large this format is. So it is the trim size of like your standard omnibus releases from like Marvel or DC, for example. To showcase that, I have it next to the Silver Surfer by Dan Slott and the All Reds omnibus, which I did review on the channel once upon a time. It is also quite a bit bigger than a standard size trade paperback. To showcase that, I have Clear from Dark Horse by Scott Snyder and Francis Manapul. And if you don't know how big a trade paperback is, it's roughly the height of a standard floppy or single issue comic. So you can definitely see that Gone is quite a bit larger. You can see from this shot that Gone actually outwides the other ones. I don't know if that's a good way to say that, but it is larger in that dimension and respect. So you can see it's definitely the largest of these three. Maybe not for page count, but in the other dimensions. One final look there, this time at the spines, again just to give you an idea of the size comparison. And if you'd like to see more information on those other books, you can see the videos. I'll try to link them to this one. I would like to provide one more size comparison. I mentioned that I'd been reviewing books of this size format recently. A good example of that is Aquaman Andromeda here from Rom V and Christian Ward. This is part of DC Comics' Black Label. They have quite a few of these kind of oversized editions. I love that boxy format, as I said, and as far as I can tell, the dimensions here are identical to what we have with Gone from Jock. So if you have been picking up those editions, this will fit nicely in the bookcase in that same size dimension and respect. Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and dive into the collection proper. We open this book up to some beautiful yellow end pages that have the ship flying and kind of the planet's surface shaded at the bottom. This was a wonderful touch for the end pages, and I love that we have that shock of yellow, just like the spine. Really beautifully done. After that, we have the title page, publication information page, things like that. And then we jump right in. There's no first cover, we just jump right into the action, and we are gone. Now, what is this story? What is Gone about? I know I mentioned that it was 3 issues, and you might be saying, wow, the page count is quite high for 3 issues. Well, yes, these issues are oversized, and not just in the dimensions we talked about, but in the actual page count. I think that these issues are all easily double-sized issues compared to a standard, 20 to 25 page count. But what we have here with Gone is essentially a science fiction coming of age thriller, I would say. I think that that is a safe spot to put this genre, and wow, what a treat we have here from Jock. I have been a fan from Jock ever since I read Black Mirror, the Batman story by Scott Snyder with him on art. I've gone on to love his work as an illustrator on other things like Andy Diggle and his Green Arrow Year One, and honestly, the list of projects I've seen Jock attached to over the years is just over and over, and I almost always love his artwork. I think he's a phenomenal artist, and I was curious with this title, not just because DSTLRY was a publisher I wanted to check out, but because I am a fan of Jock, and I was interested to see him taking on double duty as both writer and illustrator for a project. I know I've seen that with projects in the past from different creators. For example, Cliff Chiang was someone I only saw in illustrations for a while, and then eventually I got to Catwoman Lonely City, which he did double duty on. Or Alex Ross. I know he's a prolific illustrator, but then I got to see him do Fantastic Four Full Circle, where again, he did double duty as creator, writer and illustrator. And so again, that was a huge part of why I was curious about Gone from Jock. Here's an illustrator I've always really loved, but I'd love to see his hand at writing and to see what we get from him when there's that unity of effect where the storytelling is essentially completely in his hands and creative control, and I think overall this was a really fun work. I'm not clear if Jock has done other projects like this, but I do think that this was a really solid effort. I'm also a fan of the science fiction genre as a general rule, so I had a feeling this would be up my alley. The story begins where we have a young girl or young woman kind of on the outskirts of town in a kind of ghetto planet, and she basically tries to figure out a way to get more food, supplies, sustenance, and her band of friends are going to try to launch off into space on this little bit of a mission. Her mom is pregnant and kind of alone raising them in this slum, and we have her, essentially this daughter, basically fly off into space. Things go awry. We have space travel going at relativistic velocities, so before too long we actually have her aging up quite a few years until she's in adulthood, and we really just have this story of her kind of trying to find her way back home to her mother, try to stop this bad guy that's in pursuit of her, and kind of the lesser class of people here. I say lesser class, I mean socially there's kind of a looking down upon working class here, and she's sort of an advocate and hides amongst them. And anyway, there's a lot of interesting politics we get in these issues, but essentially it's her story and her way trying to survive, kind of get a leg up if she can, and ultimately find her way home. We have her going from ship bowels to different areas of the ship. We have her confronting dangerous villains along the way. We have also the presence of this interesting virus that kind of comes across in a pink mist that can overtake you, and everything really comes to an end in the final climax of the work, where it's kind of her versus this evil ship's captain. I don't want to spoil too much in my description of it, even though I might flip through it at a later point in this video, but essentially she is able to escape and find her way home to her mother. And that is really the broad strokes synopsis of Gone. That's really what we have here across the 3 issues. Again, I could go into more plot specifics, but I think the general shape there is enough for the time being. I do want to spend a few moments talking about the incredible art in this collection, however. While I did like like the story. It felt reminiscent and yet fresh in many ways. I love the world building we get through these characters and through the kind of cultures and different kind of class structures that Jock presents here. I think you definitely get an understanding of some of the sociopolitics of this world that they inhabit, but I do think that so much of what makes this work great is the artistic direction. The illustration itself is so gripping, and it helps immensely with the world building. Whether we're in the kind of ghetto slums of her upbringing or in deep space on these amazing ships, I think that the range we get from Jock here is truly exceptional. I love his kind of gritty, more realistic style, and I love seeing that on an interplanetary scale. The kind of interesting mist virus presence was also a notable facet here visually. I loved seeing that. I love seeing the tech. I love that this future world wasn't shiny and gleaming chrome, but more of the lived-in, beat-up kind of look to it. Overall, just really fascinating visually. It's some of my favorite art I've seen from Jock, and that is really saying something because, again, just a prolific creator here. I will say overall, the narrative isn't bad. I think it's there. I think his writing is solid. I think the characters were gripping, engaging, and interesting. If I had one fault for this book, I think that it's a 3-issue run here that should have been closer to 6, even at that overlarge format. I just think the characters and overall plot really would have benefited from more time to stew, maybe an issue during her upbringing on that ship during the relativistic time where we got to get to know her and the central cast maybe just a little bit more. I think that that could have helped with, again, even more world building, but even more than that, this kind of sense of your actual central characters. While I definitely get the idea of who these characters are, I think the payoff would have been richer if I had an opportunity to spend more time with them. I thought they were fascinating enough that we could have easily spent more time as they dealt with micro conflicts building up to the central climax of the work. Again, it's not really to the detriment of this collection overall, but I think that that's my one note. I just think that this collection could have benefited with a little bit more time. Some extra pages just to really fill out the world even more and to go deeper with these characters that I wanted to love and still did largely, but would have just loved to have spent more time with. Segueing now a little bit just to the presentation of this book, because I think that this should be commended as well. Yes, the visual work here from Jock is exceptional, but I also think the print quality of what we get here from DSTLRY should be noted. I love this oversized, more boxy looking page format. I think that it's always best used to showcase a more art-heavy book, and that's certainly what we have here. DSTLRY has cranked out a really beautifully crafted release. I really do think that this is a really well done set here. You can definitely tell it's a labor of love, and I love the attention to detail we get. Like the rich DC Black label that also has a lot of books in the size format, I think that this adequately does its job to just make the art and world by extension feel larger than life. At the back of the collection, we do have a variant cover art gallery that, interestingly enough, appears to be largely wraparound images, probably like this cover here with the planet. I love that they included this. It is a bit thumbnailized. I would have loved to see them 2-page spreaded, but it is still fun to see it all at a glance. These covers look panoramic by nature, and I do like seeing all the different options they got, all the different covers. I do think that this was fun to include as an extra at the back of the book. I think the only thing that could have made this release richer for me is if Jock himself had an essay or something talking about his creative process. As a huge fan of Jock, I would have just loved to see that as an addition, but I am happy with the extras that were included in this book. And that really does round out Gone by Jock from DSTLRY. I had so much fun taking a look at this collection from DSTLRY. I'm definitely eager to see more of their releases in the future. I'd love to hear in the comments section, have you read Gone or any of DSTLRY's other titles? I'd love to get that feedback in the comments section. And now I think all that's left is to give this book a grade. For an intensely exciting, albeit brief, venture through space, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Gone by Jock from DSTLRY a B. This is easily an above average read for me. I had a ton of fun. I think in particular, if you're a fan of Jock, this is a must-read title. I would also recommend it to anyone who is a fan of science fiction-based comics or those that love artistic based releases that showcase brilliant oversized artwork, definitely one to look out for. If this is the consistent caliber and release quality we get over here from DSTLRY, this is definitely a publisher to watch out for, and it's one that I know I'd love to follow up with in the future. This book certainly did not disappoint, and I can easily see myself returning to this world and these pages over and over again in the years to come. But again, those are just my thoughts on Gone. I'd love to hear yours in the comments section or anything else you have to say about DSTLRY and beyond. Thank you again for watching, and a huge thank you to DSTLRY for providing this review copy in exchange for this very honest review. And until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to give this video your like, comment, and maybe share it with a friend. Thanks everyone, and have a good one.